I thought I spent 10 years learning something that this thing knows by default, and all you have to do is ask it. So I felt like I had to kind of make the transition over. All they want to do today is tell the world that they're the first on ChatGPT, and rest will just follow. So being the first is the key point here.
Because since Hera Digital's app has been live, our AEO score went from, I think it was pretty lousy, 43% to 58% now I think it was approved maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty massive jump considering we didn't physically have to do anything actively to actually make those changes. Welcome back to the SaaS Playbook. This show exists for one reason only, and that's to have honest, commercially grounded conversations with founders and B2B operators who are actually in the middle of building something. If you're in the early scaling phase, trying to figure out how to build revenue side of your business without running on guesswork, this is exactly where you need to be. Today's guest is sitting in the intersection of AI and GTM, and the challenge he's navigating the whole market is going to face very soon. Before we get into it, today's episode is brought to you by Hera Digital. They're the RevOps and GTM architects behind the show, and they work exclusively with B2B founders who are ready to stop rebuilding from scratch every time they grow. Comment NoodleSeed, and someone will reach out to you directly. Now, my guest today is Mr. and the one and only Naveed Rafi, head of marketing from NoodleSeed. NoodleSeed builds and distributes ChatGPT apps directly on the ChatGPT App Store. That's a bit of a mouthful. Helping businesses get discovered, generate leads, and book appointments through AI native search. Now, Naveed is on the front line of one of the most interesting problems in the market right now. How do you sell that the market doesn't fully understand yet? Naveed, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Great to be here.
Lots to unpack today, Naveed,
Oh, yeah.
but if we take a trip down memory lane and before the inception of NoodleSeed, what were you doing before? And I want to understand the professional path that brought you to a point where building on top of the ChatGPT ecosystem even made sense as a bet to take.
Yeah. So before NoodleSeed, I joined maybe a couple of years ago. I was at a large financial bank, so a corporate institution with 50,000 employees, 16 million customers. I spent a decade there. So at the end of my time over there, I was leading a big data platform, a huge, 30, 40 million transactions on a daily basis big. So from I did that. But also before at the same company, I was writing a lot of code to actually process all of this data, extract all the insights. So that was something I did for about 10 years, a lot longer than I thought at a large company like NatWest. It's one of the big 4 banks in the UK. And I'm a student of computer science. I did my bachelor's and master's. I did my master's from Manchester, where Alan Turing was as well, father of computer science, helped win World War II and whatnot. So it was a great experience to do that in that city. And as you can probably tell, I used to be a musician. I used to have a drum kit. Now I just have a painting.
Painting
So,
of a drum kit. I love the word used to. Past tense.
because when you're trying to make a startup, it's so hard. You don't have time, or when you have time, there's always a to-do list. But you asked an interesting question, was how did I sort of maybe just look at when I switched over from that job in a bank to a startup. It's a big 180. But I did feel like the timing was right, because I spent good part of those 10 years writing code. And I thought I'd become good at, understanding business problems, translating them, and then writing the code, testing the code, making sure everything happens really well. And I thought, okay, this is a real skill that I have now. And then one summer in 2024, Fahad, who's the founder of NoodleSeed, he showed me this coding agent. And this was before Lovable, Replit. And you could just talk to it, say, build me a website and run it and, make it this theme or that theme. And it would go and it would start writing the code. And I thought I spent 10 years learning something that this thing knows by default, and all you have to do is ask it. So I felt like I had to kind of make the transition over.
Was that sort of the turning point where you're like, holy smokes, like I might be out of a job. So rather than fighting against it, I'm going to go join the movement.
Pretty much, because I was in a bank, things move really slowly. I thought,
Uh-huh.
okay, it's going to take a while until I'm out of a job in a bank, but definitely in a tech company. Or at that time, all I knew was like, okay, how do you write code and do all of those technical bits. So yeah, those in a startup or a tech company are all sort of done by AI, small teams trying to have a big impact, and AI is the only way to do that.
I agree. And I think there's so much to sort of add to a lot of people's journeys. But one thing I wanted to add in there was, well, another question I should say is if there's anybody out there listening who's in a similar situation as you were 2 years ago prior to joining NoodleSeed, and they're in the situation where they're like, oh, should I make the jump? I don't know, banking's pretty stable. Like I'm going to have a pretty stable income for a while, but I want to do something a bit more meaningful. What would your piece of advice be for them if they are having issues deciding whether to make the jump or not?
Great question. I think if you have spent a good amount of time in a large or medium to large sort of company, you've gained experience of what it's like to work with professionals, then you have the basics, because I do think that was really helpful. And then a lot depends on everyone's personal situations as well. So, if you're not going to be drawing a comfortable salary, you have to consider how much of a runway do you have, how much time can you do. So if you like people who are really dependent on their salary, maybe they're very early in their careers and they need to build a buffer. I do think that gaining a little bit of experience building that buffer will give you the runway and the experience to make your jump successful, or give you a better chance of being successful. Success is obviously not guaranteed, but you will definitely benefit from it. And then whenever you're in a situation where you're uncomfortable and it's new, for me, deciding to leave Pakistan when I was young, that was also an uncomfortable situation. Wherever you kind of invest in a new experience, in my experience, if you have the chance, do it and build up to it and definitely try it out.
So basically, make the jump. When you're in a stable situation, or either whether that's financially or career or growth, you typically are expecting like a linear path of growth, right? And that's
Yeah.
pretty normal. I think that's just the human experience. But when you're in a startup space, it's more like this rather than linear. So there's some
Yeah.
really good days and some really bad days. And I think that's what keeps the excitement going, one. But I think being uncomfortable and sort of breaking that comfortable barrier is what really makes you grow as an individual and as someone that can actually contribute to making something more meaningful. But I think what is very prevalent for me after having many conversations with founders who come from corporate backgrounds, 90% do, is corporate becomes very meaningless after time. I think because you're just employed to do one job and one job only, and there's very little room for you to grow as an individual. And that's what people seek. Humans inertly seek growth to some degree. And I think in the startup space, you can do so where it's relatively more safe than it would be out on your own. So that's all I wanted to add. But you
Yeah.
used this phrase in our previous conversations that stuck with me. And you spoke about the infamous bell curve, that early adopters being roughly the first 2% of what the other 98% actually look like right now. But
Yeah.
what does that actually take to reach them?
In terms of once you've started your startup journey and you're trying to sort of create the demand for something that you've
Mhm.
just created but isn't there. But 1,500 people were the ones who took a bet. They were extremely lenient when they faced bugs. And I think to capture the remaining 98%, the focus needs to be these early adopters who get angry with you but want to keep the relationship. And you have been an early adopter as well. It's because of the focus on the first 2%. Then the rest of it is which of your GTM bets actually work to normalize it for the rest of the 98%.
It's tricky.
It's not a, this is how you do it. It's how I'm approaching it these days.
Yeah, I don't think there is any playbook to any GTM service or product offering that works. Every product or service offering is very unique in my experience, and therefore the market in which you approach, the messaging, what you say, when you say, who you say it to, changes drastically. Even though people may
Oh,
think that it's just one motion, it's actually more than one motion. There's so many things to consider. But
yeah.
quick plug, thanks to NoodleSeed, Hera Digital's app is live now on ChatGPT. So if you
Right.
find us on there and you came from this podcast episode, please chat with our Halo bot and let it know so we can we can update the knowledge base. But I think what really stood out for me about Noodle Seed is how passionate the team is. I've been fortunate enough to almost meet the entire Noodle Seed team, whether that's through podcast episodes or indirectly through the partnership that we've developed. But there's always one thing, and I said this to Assad and Fahad, being the co-founders, is the one thing that everyone is just as passionate as the next person. There's no one person that wears one hat, and that's pretty standard in the startup space. But everyone is just as passionate as everybody else, and
Yeah.
everyone is willing to help regardless of which domain it falls under. And that's what I love about our partnership and why I think it's lasted so long. You guys are incredibly patient. So that always helps. But I love how adaptive the Noodle Seed team really are. Any time that you want to make a change or you want to make a suggestion, they're always really open to hearing your feedback. So if you want to be an early adopter with Noodle Seed, please do reach out. But the education piece seems to be, I feel, the single biggest blocker that Noodle Seed is working
Yeah.
against. And it's something a lot of emerging tech companies face. In your experience, is
Cool.
that a market timing problem or a messaging problem? Because the two require completely different responses and methods.
Yeah, great question. So let's take a step back and let me just share. NoodleSeed has been through, the company's been around for 2 years, but what we are doing today has we've been at it for about 7 months. Two pivots. So when I joined, we were going through our first pivot, and then in October last year, 2025, so just start of last winter, we knew that we had to take the company in a different direction. We can talk about what we were doing at that time separately. But these annual events that big tech companies do. So OpenAI was doing their annual summit or equivalent, and Sam Altman announced that they're going to do an SDK, which is basically a way that you can actually build apps on to ChatGPT, and they will launch an app store in December. A few days after that, the founders got together, discussed, and started using the SDK and started, they put their sleeves up and after a weekend came up with an initial demo of what a world can look like when every business can plug into customer conversations, or customers rather can plug into businesses as they're having these conversations. It felt like in 2008 when Steve Jobs announced the App Store. And before we went pedal to the metal on this idea, obviously we got together and we really critiqued, and we talked about the timing. And we felt that one thing that we had felt after our first pivot was that we started, and Hassan mentioned this in his podcast, that we started with a vibe coding platform when NoodleSeed started, something like Lovable. This was late 2024. And at that time, Lovable was very new and we built something, but Lovable was a few months ahead. And I think the first mover advantage is one which outweighs the timing argument. So you can start early and keep building momentum so that when the world catches up, which inevitably they did with App Store and Play Store and mobile. mobile apps being common because every person is holding a mobile phone. So at that time, we decided we may be early, but that was a very conscious decision. So now comes, okay, you have a product, but where's the education? We do struggle with it. Yesterday, I posted on my LinkedIn. We made a really nice video to explain what NoodleSeed is in under a minute, and I wanted to post it and share it with people who follow me on LinkedIn. And one of the things I said was NoodleSeed has been quietly at it with their customers, but it has changed a lot, which raises the question: what is NoodleSeed again? And so we kind of built that video, and that was just yesterday. Now we're 7 months in, and I'm talking about an explainer video under 1 minute. You're like, you should have done that on month number one. So I do think that whether that video came today or month one, the impact of it would be still similar, because we are still seeing this space starting to grow. And speaking of growth, there is this person, I don't know the full name, Elliot. He has this little tracker, app discovery dot some. In fact, I have it's called app.agentdiscoverability.com. And it tracks how many apps are there on the ChatGPT App Store and how many apps are there in the Claude marketplace. And only recently we're starting to see that OpenAI there was a gradual increase in the number of apps, but recently it's kind of picked up as well. So I don't know if anyone's watching, do check out app.agentdiscoverability.com. And there you will find that the single biggest publisher of ChatGPT apps is actually NoodleSeed. So there is no other company that has made this many apps, because most companies, they go like, oh, this is my business. I need a website. I need maybe an Instagram page. Maybe I need a Android and iOS app so that people can communicate with me and transact with me through all these channels. And today they're like, ooh, but we also need perhaps a ChatGPT app. NatWest Bank launched one in the last few weeks. Turkish Airlines launched it. So if you have airlines and banks starting to be, you can chat to them on all of your favorite ChatGPT and Claude platforms. The education, we hope, will the burden of educating people will be taken by the big companies that have an incentive for people to be on their platform and not leave for Google or other platforms.
Mm.
Long
I
answer
think
again.
there's a few things I just wanted to touch on there. Is I think when NoodleSeed had started to pivot is when I really met NoodleSeed as a team. And I was like, oh, it must be serendipitous because there's so much to talk about. And even at that time on Hassan's episode, we dived into how taking holidays in 2024 really impacted the growth of the vibe coding platform, which was originally what NoodleSeed set out to be. And I think I wanted to touch on the speed people think about when it comes to GTM. And that is, I find because I speak to a lot of founders and a lot of builders within this space, and there's always one or two perspectives. One is more from a tech perspective. I want to get this 100% before we go to market. And that's generally correct from a technical perspective. But then on the other hand is we have generally a co-founder that is a bit more business savvy and want to go faster, right? And there's this fine balance, and it's like a fun equation of speed versus MVP, or product relativity. So how much of the product should be developed before you go to market? And I actually used NoodleSeed's use case, I should say, or experience to tell people that you shouldn't wait for the product to be 100%, because one, it never will be 100%, but two, you're most likely not going to be the only one with the same idea. It's who can bring the same product to market better and faster. It is often where we find the success. Everyone has their own different channels and different distribution methods, but you have to have those conversations early on. But I think also wanting to touch on the fact that NoodleSeed is the number one, the market leading business that actually creates ChatGPT apps tells us, like, in 7 or 8 months, the team have been doing a lot of work.
They have
So
been at
and
it. Yeah, we can
that's not
talk about.
something to shy away from, right? That's a lot of work. And we got to remember as well, when we are entering a different platform, whether that be Claude or Anthropic or OpenAI, is we are at their mercy, unfortunately. If they say jump, we have to say how high. And that's sort of one
Yeah.
of the volatility that you guys have to operate on. And I think I wanted to share that with people because as people think, oh, it's easy, you just import everything from a URL, and then it's done. I'm like, it's way more, it's way more than that. And I didn't know that. And I
Yeah.
think that also comes from an education piece, which might be helpful for people out there because in your example of NatWest, not sure if you had anything to do with NatWest creating their own ChatGPT app, but also Turkish Airlines. The apps doesn't necessarily mean that for the small businesses out there that they can't have an app. Because I think when we look at the App Store on ChatGPT, it's always the big names on the front page. And
Yeah.
then often people think, well, why? I don't think I've got a shot here. But in our
Mm,
experience, like Hera Digital has an app, which means that any business between small and medium up to all the way to large enterprise can have an app. And it's an additional way. I'm shamelessly plugging NoodleSeed here, but it's an additional source of discoverability. And that then sort of begs the question of the app is really great. And essentially like putting yourself in a new marketplace.
correct.
But what NoodleSeed has done on top of that layer is helping businesses become discoverable. And that's really, for me, at least in my conversations with my clients, that's really the driving force of from a marketing perspective, and why it's worth going through the process is because of the AO discoverability place. Because since Hera Digital's app has been live, our AEO score went from, I think it was pretty lousy, 43% to 58% now I think it was approved maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty massive jump considering we didn't physically have to do anything actively to actually make those changes. So even if the app is not for you, but you want to be more discoverable on
Yeah.
native LLMs,
Yeah.
Noodle Seed's the easiest way to go. The team really will help you out. And I think it's
Yeah.
really important to say that. No, I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan and I'm a partner, but there's a reason why you have, what,
No.
2,000
Yeah.
applications to process.
Yeah. No, you're right. So a lot of you touched upon a few things. So if I unpack the part where you said that it's not just the big brands who can have an app like NatWest Bank or Turkish Airlines. One of the reasons so you said I probably don't have anything to do with NatWest's ChatGPT app, and that's correct, and that's deliberate, of course, not that I could have, but we are not targeting. We're not
Enterprise.
building apps for enterprise. We have the four value offerings. So the first one is absolutely free. You can, sign up to NoodleSeed, click a few buttons, get something, and the team will make sure that they submit it to the App Store and you go live. Then we have different tiers, and like if your app is generating a lot of traffic, so the tiers are based on that. And then we do custom apps as well for some design partners as well, which we have done for about 4 or 5 now. So those apps are a little bit more involved with the user experience, and the outcomes that you get in a conversational experience is uh, is different from our standard apps that come out of the box, which anyone can basically create. So the basic apps, they will allow you to answer FAQs and you know uh, have customers be able to book appointments, things like that. I think there are 4 or 5 main things. And yeah, so like large businesses, they have developer teams, they'll build their own apps, but it is smaller companies that go like, oh, there's this amazing marketplace that I can be on, but I don't have developers to actually go and build and figure out this new piece of tech. And that's really where NoodleSeed comes in for those kinds of. And in our existing customer base, there are a lot of life coaches, private consultants offering some legal services, etc. Privately, not as part of a big company. So they can really easily get started and not be worried that, oh, I can't be on this channel. It's available. There's a lot of travel companies as well that we're working with. And restaurant companies that are all now starting to jump onto this ecosystem.
Can you walk people through the process of what that actually looks like end to end for those businesses who don't have the tech team behind them to build that out?
Yeah. So our website's noodleseed.com, you kind of get an understanding of, okay, what it is. But to kind of get started, log in. It'll ask for your website because the premise is it's for small to medium sized business owners. So you enter your website. It's going to go and have a look at all your products, your FAQs, your brand colors, your images. It will fill all of that out. Obviously, you have the option to edit anything to make sure that what you get at the end is a branded experience inside ChatGPT for your customers. So they know without a doubt that they're talking to your business. So if you have a very specific hex code for the blue you want to use, you can get exactly that. Once you've kind of completed the onboarding, the page that you land in is called, it's a guided setup. Anything that up till this point within onboarding that's remaining, that's optional, that's nice to have, we make you aware of that so you can configure it. And then there's a simple way in which you say, submit this app onto the App Store. And that's when one of our, so this journey was not automated in the original product months ago. We've iterated with lots of feedback and we've brought the submission process mostly into the product. But at this point, someone from our team will get in touch. And if they have any questions or recommendations around, hey, in your privacy policy or terms and conditions on your website for the maximum chances of it being approved, tweak this or that. Once everything looks good, we're going to submit the app. The average time now is actually less than a week. Earlier this week, we submitted in the morning, and in the evening, the app was approved and live on ChatGPT. And at that point, we celebrate with our customers and we say, hey, here are ways that you can promote it to your customers so that they can transact directly within ChatGPT. It improves your discoverability score as well. So if somebody's looking for, I don't know, plumbers in the area because you need to fix the kitchen sink or something, and you have an app, OpenAI wants that customer not to leave and go to Google and Chrome and on the website. So they would be the process is evolving, but it becomes easier and easier for the person to say, hey, okay, there's this plumber, here's the dates that are available, and then the person shows up at your door. So for the plumber, the process would have been what I just described.
And actually, we've done that for one of our local clients here in Perth, Western Australia. And it really does dive deep into locality. And then it actually provides quite a lot of in depth information about how to therefore become discoverable based on your location, based on what you do. And I think that's the data that a lot of small to medium businesses just really don't have the time to really think about. Whereas NoodleSeed is like, hey, did you know about this? This is how you can be more discoverable. And I'm not sure if that was the original intention behind the discoverability piece, but I found it, particularly in that scenario, extremely helpful. And that really just touches on how much of an impact that would make to small businesses.
Mm.
Like if you gave me enough time, I could probably go on stage and talk about NoodleSeed just as much as basically as good as Asad or Farhan would be
We'll
right
we'll
now.
send
But
you we'll send you a shirt, and we can put Noodle Seed, a Hera Digital on one shirt, and then you go. I think
uh,
it's great to hear this from you. Obviously, you've given very constructive feedback as well to the team, and you've seen how much ownership everyone in the team takes to make sure that customers get the best possible experience. There was another customer there's a business in India, a very unique sort of business. They allow you to buy electronics sitting from home. So you go on their website. It's called Epic. So I think Get Epic, Epic with a K. And it's a really interesting business where you say, okay, I want an air fryer and I want a phone and I want headphones to go with it as well. But I'm not sure whether I want the Pixel or the iPhone or, this air fryer or that air fryer. So you just go on their website and you just order all of it. And on the same day, a van arrives with all of these items. They even give you a demo at home. And then when you're satisfied with whatever piece of electronic you like, they will you transact at home and they go away with the things that you didn't buy. And they're rapidly growing as well. So they're in, I think, Bengaluru. There's a city over there. It's big, and they're expanding into different cities. And it was amazing. Like I woke up to LinkedIn today, and similar to NatWest and Turkish Airline, their post was, "We're on ChatGPT. This is how it works. Go find us." A lot of these businesses, their incentive today, again, touching upon the bell curve in the first 2%, is that they know they're the first 2%. And they're like, this space will evolve. The functionality, the closeness that the business has with the customers will deepen. Today, if all the functionality isn't there, they're going to have, okay, just start, discover us, and start your journey in ChatGPT, and then go to our mobile app or web app for a much richer experience. So the initial 2%, they know that it's going to evolve. All they want to do today is tell the world that they're the first on ChatGPT, and rest will just follow. So being the first is the key point here. So a lot of these businesses are trying to do that.
And who doesn't like being the first to anything, really? People love shiny new things, right? So this is the perfect opportunity to get yourself into that space as a small or medium business owner.
Yeah.
Now, when we look at sort of the scalability of NoodleSeed, and I feel like that's where you've been brought on board to sort of look after, you've got probably more now, but you've got 27 apps live on the store, and you've already seen the data in which where the ones are performing well. What are you learning from those top performers, and what does the next 6 months of growth actually look like for NoodleSeed based on that?
Okay, so a little update. We actually now have, just pulling up the number. So we had a few more apps that were approved after 27. But 27 was probably a few weeks ago. It's just over 40 apps now.
Wow. Yeah.
So one of the team members said that 45 days ago we had 0 apps and we were worried why our apps aren't being accepted. But like I said, it was a very slow growth within OpenAI as well. Like they were also figuring out their processes for it. But today it's over 40. So 45 days later, everybody in the company is extremely happy about that. What are we seeing in terms of the most successful ones? So the most successful apps are the ones where the business owners are who have this app are actively promoting it to their audience. That's where they're using it for their marketing to be able to say we're the first. And what that's doing, it's driving a lot of traffic to their apps. Or some have embedded Halo within their website. So what they're seeing is, I'll give you an example of one company. It's a clothing brand. And when they installed Halo, they found out that people are asking about certain products more than the others. They're asking about how much is left in stock. They're asking, will this store open a physical store because it's only an online retailer? They're asking for promo codes that they saw on their other campaigns that give, so these are customers who've been referred to by other customers who've bought something on a promo code. They don't have the promo code and they're coming to the website and asking the chatbot, hey, my friend told me, can I? So all of these rich insights, the businesses who are promoting and have Halo on their websites are seeing, but it's not all rainbows and butterflies. There are apps which kind of go silently under the radar. So if somebody is a very small coach, they don't have a lot of audience, and they're trying to build that. Their only sort of way to get traffic through this new channel is relying on the improvement of their SEO and AEO scores, which NoodleSeed helps with, but it's not our core sort of offering. And those, so that's what I'm seeing basically within the 40 apps, the more successful ones versus the ones that are still struggling for traffic. Yeah. I would
Yeah.
say that that's how I'm seeing the sort of results. It's a lot of it is upon the business that wants this new channel to go and champion this channel and be like, we're here. You can come and interact with us there. One more thing I would say is that the reason why NoodleSeed is able to create so many apps on the App Store is because all of these apps offer 5 things that everyone needs from any channel, which is, can I find leads? Can I get Can I fill up my calendar? Can I make sales? So I mentioned earlier that we do some apps with our design partners, which are different. One of them is with a travel company. So you say that instead of saying, hey, tell me about this business and when can I get a booking, or show me their products so I can buy the right one for me, this one is going a little bit deeper with a travel company. It's saying, hey, I'm looking for, I don't know, a nice romantic weekend getaway with my wife. Show me or inspire me. And this company, they build like lots of reels. It's called Layla.ai, and they have a very unique AI take to travel in this day and age. So when customers interact with their ChatGPT app, it comes back with all kinds of visuals and things like that. So those companies are obviously having more sophisticated apps, better experiences, and more connection with the customers.
And I think it's almost like the removing the friction from answering the question that or inquiries that potential customers may have, but at speed is I find really helpful.
While you're sleeping.
Yeah, and then what I found is somebody actually came to Hera Digital's and interacted with our Halo and said, "Where can I find your podcast?" So there's many use cases for the Halo app, but also what I wanted to mention is from an AEO discoverability piece is what Halo really does really well is it directionally feeds that knowledge back to your AEO, which means you don't have to physically go back and update these things manually as often as you typically would from a manual perspective. And I think that's what's really been able to stand out as well, because those insights, although they are really generally small questions, it gives the business owner a really good insight as to what are the gaps that their customers that they're not covering, but they are questions. And I think that's like we look at NoodleSeed as the ChatGPT app, we look at the discoverability piece, and we look at Halo. But if we really drill down on it, they're all separate components that build to a bigger picture. But they're all if you look into each component with a magnifying glass,
Hmm.
they all serve a very good purpose in their own right. And I think that's not spoken about enough as well, is I feel like everything that's put onto the Noodleseed platform is there with intention of helping your customers be discoverable, be in a position where the customers can react with their business. And it just goes to show from someone who's experienced the Noodleseed experience, I can say you need to give yourself a bit more credit because what the team are doing is it's all for the user at the end of the day and the business at the end of the day. And not enough people
Yeah.
know about.
So I at Noodleseed, I kind of sit in the intersection between the customer and the engineering team. And the way this engineering team works is that I will share some feedback if they don't already have tapped into it, because they're using lots of AI tools to stay on top of the customer experiences so that they can iterate and improve every day. But like just an example of like you mentioned and you are aware of this as well, that you get an email notification if somebody asks something that the AI wasn't able to answer. Because we found that a lot of business owners, yeah, it's amazing that it can answer, 10 types of question, but what about the 11th one? Will it come up with a random answer, an incorrect answer? And that's what our customers would lose sleep over. That I'm not comfortable with AI being the front door for my customers. So when I shared this with the team that a very specific customer is kind of facing these kinds of questions and want to know how they can easily update the knowledge base. And just kind of just sharing this experience and then coming up with obviously a much easier user interface to update to see what are the questions being asked that AI cannot answer, to being able to provide those answers and updating the knowledge base. Knowledge base sounds a little bit technical, but it's just like telling the AI to make sure that save this in your memory so that you can use it next time when someone asks. To then coming up with, hey, people are asking for a certain promo code. I can see that you have this Instagram page. I can reroute them to send you a message or something on Instagram. Do you want to accept it as a response or do you want to customize it? So sometimes I'm demoing to something to a customer and maybe it's been a couple of days or a week that I haven't logged in, and I'd be like, so for this you have to do three things. Click on this button, you click, and then you're like, oh no, actually now it's just one thing, because the product itself has just kind of incorporated this pain point. So sometimes I'm a little bit shocked myself at how quickly the team takes ownership and iterates on making sure that the customer gets the best possible experience in the only tool that exists for solving this type of problem, because there are other tools that solve the same problem in different ways, but Noodle Seeds kind of just focus on take the burden away from the user, anticipate, and make sure that, and we're not there, we're still iterating, but make sure that when the user comes in, it's absolutely necessary, ideally just to click accept or to click no, I would like to manually take over things.
Mm. I think that is just the cornerstone of what NoodleSeed is as a business, and the core is how much the NoodleSeed team genuinely care about the user experience, but also how responsive the team is and
Yeah.
how willing you are to take on board feedback. Now we've had a lot of proposals for partnerships, but we often don't go down that route because we just don't see the team would take care of our customer base as much as NoodleSeed does and will, and that's what really stood out for us, and that's why it made complete sense for us to partner with NoodleSeed, because I'm like, it just there's I can't fault I can't fault the partnership so far. But Naveed, before we wrap up, where can NoodleSeed find you specifically and NoodleSeed if they want to explore getting their own app onto the ChatGPT store?
Yeah. So if anyone wants to find Noodle Seed, hopefully the name is memorable enough. Just go on noodleseed.com, and there you'll find us. You'll find links to our social pages as well. Another way is to go on ChatGPT App Store and type in Noodle Seed. Our app will show up over there as well. You can sign up over there and get started with setting up your business onto ChatGPT. If not, we are also on LinkedIn. You can look for Naveed Rafi, or just Noodle Seed, and you'll see the whole team of 11 of us. You just message any one of us. We're a very close bunch. We talk to each other every day. We've got a virtual office, so we'll know and we'll reach out to you as well. So there's LinkedIn, Instagram, and the website and ChatGPT.
And Hera Digital. But I wanted to note as well quickly that the Noodles team are pretty much global. I think you are in the UK. We've got Fahad and Rihan in the US. We've got Asad and Samo and Hassan in Pakistan. Like, no matter what
We've
the
got
time zone, someone will
we've got
probably reply to you.
we've got Ebere in Kenya, and we've got Shema in Morocco. So we have this internal joke that we're 11 people from 6 different continents and 5 or 6 different countries, depending on whether you account Scotland and England as different countries. So we're all over the place, all over the time zones, and we love talking to people. So if they're curious at all, we'd love to hear their stories.
And you now have Hera Digital in Australia as well. So we're adding to the list. But
Yeah.
that wraps up our episode for today, Naveed. Thank you so much for sharing insights. It's actually been really nice to actually talk from a partnership perspective,
Yeah.
which we don't often get to do on our podcast. So it's been really meaningful thus far, not only from our conversations, but how involved the team is. Now, I've mentioned it 3 times, but how the NoodleSeed genuinely do care about their partners and the end experience for their customers. It just tells me that NoodleSeed will be around for a very long time. But in the meantime, keep building meaningfully. And thank you for joining us again, Naveed.
Thank you so much.